What type of coffee has the most caffeine in it? We all want to know what type of coffee has the most caffeine. We all know that coffee has caffeine, but did you know that not all coffees have the same amount of caffeine? In fact, there can be quite a bit of variation in the amount of caffeine in different types of coffee. So, which kind of coffee has the most caffeine in it? Read on to find out. Types of coffee. There are many different types of coffee, each with an additional amount of caffeine. The coffee with the most caffeine is typically espresso, which can have up to 100 milligrams of caffeine per shot. Other types of coffee, like drip coffee, can have anywhere from 30 to 50 milligrams of caffeine per cup. Caffeine levels in coffee. When it comes to caffeine levels, all coffee is not created equal. In general, the darker the roast, the less caffeine it contains. For example, a light roast will have more caffeine than a dark roast. There are also variations within types of coffee. For instance, espresso typically has more caffeine than drip coffee. And while there are variations from cup to cup, on average, one shot of espresso has about 63 milligrams of caffeine, while a 12-ounce cup of drip coffee has about 115 milligrams. So if you're looking for a quick caffeine fix, your best bet is a shot of espresso. But if you want to savor your cup and enjoy the flavor profiles of different roasts, go for drip coffee. You may need an extra cup to get your morning buzz. The best coffee for the caffeine. Some people believe that dark roast coffee has more caffeine because it is roasted for longer. However, this is only sometimes true. The best way to determine the amount of caffeine in coffee is to look at the coffee beans themselves. Coffee beans contain different amounts of caffeine depending on their variety and where they were grown. For example, Arabica beans typically have less caffeine than Robusta beans. And coffee from Africa generally has more caffeine than coffee from South America. When it comes to finding the coffee with the most caffeine, it really depends on what you're looking for. If you want a strong cup of coffee with a lot of energy, you should opt for a darker roast or a bean with higher levels of caffeine. But if you're looking for a smoother cup of coffee, you should go for a lighter roast or a bean with lower levels of caffeine. How to make coffee with less caffeine? When it comes to coffee and caffeine, there are a lot of variables at play. The type of coffee bean, the roast, the grind, the brewing method, and even the water can all affect the final caffeine content of your cup. If you're looking to make a lower caffeine coffee, there are a few things you can do. First, start with a lighter roasted coffee bean. Lighter roasts generally have less caffeine than dark roasts. Second, use a coarser grind. A finer grind means more surface area of the bean is exposed to water, resulting in more caffeine extraction. Third, opt for a longer brewing time. This will also lead to less caffeine in your cup. Finally, use fewer coffee grounds overall. A weaker brew will have less caffeine than a strong one. Remember that these methods will only result in slightly less caffeinated coffee. If you're looking for something genuinely decaffeinated, you'll need to buy unique beans or water processes that remove the caffeine molecules from the bean entirely. Coffee is one of the most popular beverages in the world. It's a drink with a rich history and culture, but some people need to know which coffee has the most caffeine. This article will break down the different types of coffees, how much caffeine they contain, and what you should consider based on your caffeine preference. The caffeine content in coffee beans. The average coffee bean contains between 1 and 2% caffeine. The range of caffeine in coffee beans is due mainly to variety and growing conditions. For example, Robusta beans typically contain more caffeine than Arabica beans. The caffeine content also varies depending on how the coffee is brewed. For example, drip coffee generally has more caffeine than espresso because it has a longer brewing time, allowing more caffeine to be extracted from the beans. So, what type of coffee has the most caffeine? It depends on several factors, but generally speaking, espresso and drip coffee made with Robusta beans will have the highest levels of caffeine. Thank you for watching. CoffeeEternal.com